The ongoing situation in Ukraine has left many of its citizens fleeing to countries around the border of Ukraine, such as Poland. However, there are many people who've decided to stay in the country, and one of those people is my guest today. Joining me now is Inna Suvsin. She is a Ukrainian MP for the Golos party. Thank you very much for joining me. I do want to start out with, there are numerous countries who have offered their support to Ukraine. Countries have imposed economic sanctions against Russia. Are there other ways, in your view, that countries can help to show support for Ukraine amidst what is obviously a very challenging time for your country?
Well, thank you for going straight to the point, because yes, we do believe that other countries can do more to support Ukraine. Because first of all, what I need to say is that it's important to understand, I think that the world is starting to grasp it, is that it's not just the war of Russia against Ukraine, it's actually the war of Russia against the whole of civilized world. It's the war of Vladimir Putin against the very idea of democratic state existing. It's the war against the human decency, what we are fighting in right now. So it's actually Ukraine defending the very eastern side, the eastern border of the whole of the civilized world. And that is why we are asking for the support from the whole world. And that support can be provided in several ways. We did get in weeks or months leading towards the war, we did get some support for the army. We would appreciate more. Our soldiers are fighting like hell. As you can see, the Russians, despite being a much bigger power in terms of military, they cannot proceed into Ukrainian territory. That's precisely because our army is so strong and so motivated. So more support to the Ukrainian army is number one. Number two is more sanctions against Russia. And by those sanctions, I mean full trade embargo. Because any dollar that is being sent to Russia for a single barrel of oil is being used to buy weapons with which they're killing Ukrainians, including Ukrainian children. On that note, I should add that I've got the most recent data for the number of civilian casualties among the children, and the number is 21 children that have been killed in this Russian war against Ukraine as of now, as we speak. So please do establish full trade embargo, and that is what we're asking for, and that is what we're asking the leaders of the world, but then also the citizens. Just talk to your representatives, talk to your MP, and ask them to establish full trade embargo. And the third thing, and that is a different thing, and I know it is raising many debates all over the world, but that is establishing a no-fly zone. Because we are fighting Russians on the ground, but it is very difficult to do it efficiently if the Russians keep bombarding our cities from the air. And that is what they're doing right now with my native city of Kharkiv. I was born and raised there. I graduated from school there. I'm getting messages from people sitting in bunkers for 3 days in a row, saying that please tell everyone about what is happening in Kharkiv right now. They're bombing the city center. The bomb fell down like 5 minutes walk from where I went to school. So that's why we're asking for support from here to make sure that things that are happening in Kharkiv and in other cities right now just stop happening.
I want to ask you, you mentioned the no-fly zone and the idea of that. The UK Defense Secretary, I guess, tried to give a justification to not doing that in the United Kingdom. In terms of, I guess, just provide a little bit more insight as to why you think a no-fly zone is, an important step at, defeating Russia and protecting the sovereignty of Ukraine.
Well, it is important right now because what Putin is doing is he is bombing the civilians. He is bombing from air, and he is throwing bombs at hospitals, at kindergarten. One missile hit the orphanage. One bomb hit the maternity ward where women were delivering babies. I did read this terrible story today when a woman gave birth to twins yesterday, and they were in the hospital with her husband, and the twins were in the bunker. Somehow twins did survive the missile attack, but both parents, mother and the father, have been killed in a missile attack. They were born just yesterday, and today they are already orphans, and they're being killed by missiles thrown from the sky in Ukraine. In Ukraine, that did nothing wrong to deserve this, and it's very difficult for Ukraine to get to beat Russians in the sky. They do have the superiority here because we are under attack and they're attacking us. So you can do a lot on courage, but you cannot save yourself from missile just throwing on your head.
In terms of the economic sanctions that various other countries have imposed, I mean, the economic sanctions that have been imposed, I mean, where I'm speaking to you from today in Canada, our country's imposed economic sanctions against Russia. Again, numerous other countries who are a part of NATO, for example, have done the same thing, but it doesn't seem as if President Putin in Russia seems to care, quite frankly. It seems as if he's, continuously proceeding to invade the sovereign state of Ukraine. So I guess how can you go about doing this and about trying to, win the battle to protect the sovereignty of Ukraine when, Vladimir Putin, despite all these economic sanctions that are being imposed, doesn't seem to be budging?
I think if you are completely right when you are saying that Putin is not bulging to the sanctions, but that is because, and I think the whole world just needs to admit it, is he has gone completely crazy. He is not a rational man, because any single rational person, the country leader, would not do what he is doing to Ukraine right now. There is no good reason for war. We were not a threat to him. He's claiming that he attacked Ukraine because we wanted to be part of NATO. The story is actually completely different, because he attacked Ukraine in 2014 because he wanted to, and he attacked Ukraine in 2014 when we were officially a non-allied neutral state. So he started a war on the east of Ukraine in the Donbas area. He annexed Crimea when we were a neutral state. So every time he is claiming that he wants to educate or to teach Ukraine because we want to be a NATO state, that is completely reversed, because we want to be a NATO state precisely because Putin attacked us when we were a neutral state. So he's gone completely nuts, and I think the whole world is starting to understand that. The major question right now is whether the political elites in Russia start to understand that, because I think it's up for them to decide now on the future of their country and of our country, because it's for Russian elites to impeach Putin. He cannot survive this war as a president of Russia, and that is the way that's the only way out of this situation. He needs to be impeached. He cannot be president of Russia anymore, because having a crazy man as the leader of the major power is just dangerous, not just to Ukraine, not just to Russia, but actually to the whole world. That is why those sanctions are not having any effect on him, because he doesn't care, because he doesn't think clearly. He's literally gone crazy. So my question is whether those sanctions will have a major effect on the people in Russia, and also on the political and economic elites. And from what I am seeing, particularly the political and economic elites are starting to feel the effect of those sanctions. And people in Russia are starting to feel the effects of those sanctions. They complain that Apple Pay is not functioning. They complain that they cannot travel to the European states anymore, because they declared that Russian planes cannot travel to those states anymore. So it is actually taking ground. It is having effect. The major businesses are pulling out of Russia. So that would have effect on the economic elites. But we need more. We need full-scale embargo, so that the business elites would just say, like, we want Putin out just because we are losing money.
And as one final question, I'm just kind of wondering, I believe you decided to stay in Ukraine. So in terms of, what's next for you? I mean, you've decided to stay in Ukraine. Numerous Ukrainians have, as I mentioned in my intro when we began, have decided to flee to countries like Poland. What's next for, you personally?
Well, I am a member of parliament, so I have to stay here with my people. Fleeing now would be wrong on so many levels. I do know many people did flee. I know the majority of the people who did flee, they fled because they wanted to make sure that their children are safe. I myself have a son. He's not much younger than you. He's 9. His name is Martin. And the first thing I did when I heard the first explosions over Kyiv was making sure that my son is safe. So I can understand the emotions of people who did leave, because taking care of your son of your children is the most important thing you need to do. Well, in my case, it was not me who was taking my son away by his father. His father did take him away to the west of Ukraine to make sure that he is safe. But I am a member of parliament. I should be staying where my people are. So I should be staying in Kyiv, and we should be protecting Kyiv to the last. Well, if that means risking our lives, if that means going to front to battle, well, I will have to do that, because well, we cannot just surrender to Putin. We can't. And I need the whole world to know that we shall be fighting to the end, because we cannot let Putin take over Kyiv. So what we're asking the world is to make sure that in this fight, we do have the support from the West, and we make sure that this war is finished as soon as possible and with as little casualties as possible.
Okay, that is Inna Suvsin. She is a member of the Ukrainian parliament. Thank you so very much for making time amidst what's obviously a very challenging time for Ukraine, and obviously people, not just where I'm speaking to you from today in Canada, but obviously people across the world are thinking about the people in Ukraine. So thank you again for joining me.
Thank you, Wyatt, for having me.